Okay, going after the oil leak. I haven't crawled underneath it yet, but I was underneath it the other day and it looks like it's running down from up top. So we're going to just take this cover off, go ahead and check it out. And but I think it's coming as big of the puddle as big of a puddle as it was this morning. I think it's that oil pressure sending unit, but we'll find out shortly. We got to disconnect the, not that one, that's for our off-road lights. We disconnect this one for the cigarette lighter and the power, and then we'll have the 4 10mm bolts. That'll have that off, then we'll take the straps off and remove that cover. Okay, for some reason, a lot of people have trouble getting this stuff back on right. If you'll notice, you got that red dot that's facing out. That's the way these straps go. They have these handles where you can unhook and hook these straps back, and they hook onto the springs up front. And the vent goes underneath those straps. So if you have it on any other way, it's wrong. And the people that swap this engine out, they must have had this cover off 5 or 6 times and they never got it back on right, not the first time. And I would always end up putting it back on right, and then when they'd take it off, they couldn't get it back on right. But anyway, we're going to take that off and we'll see if it's that oil pressure sending unit. Well, instead of coming out of the sending unit itself, it looks like it's coming out of that L mount that is screwed into the intake. It looks like there's either no tape on it, or they may have got it cross-threaded when they put it in. I mean, these guys did so many different things that they've just filed up from the, I can't tell you how many things they filed up and how much I had it back, how many times I had it back over there tied up and waiting up to a week and a half, even for the warranty work, for them to get it in to do warranty work on it. But I'm not sure what we're going to do. We're going to clean it up and then see what, as big as that puddle of oil was last night, I don't see it running down that much. We need to get underneath there, I guess, and look and see if there's something coming out around that oil pump, or maybe that mount where the oil cooling unit goes over to where it mounts onto the bottom of the block. They may not have got that on right. Okay, well, let's clean it up and see what we can figure out. How can anyone afford to take their car to the shop and have it worked on nowadays? Brake pads for this Cherokee, distributor cap, rotary button, oil pressure sending unit, and oil pressure sending unit wrench for the van. $182. That's just the parts. Now, I've got a oil pressure sending unit socket already, but with the cost of gas and the time involved, it's cheaper for me to buy this one for $16 than it would be for me to go across town, spend the gas, the time, wear and tear on the vehicle. So it's cheaper to buy this one, and now I'll have 2. So we're going to get back in here on this van. And we're going to change this. And I'm not even sure this oil pressure sending unit is leaking. I don't think it is. But I'm not going to go to this much trouble and not replace it. So we're going to replace the oil pressure sending unit. I think the leak is in the mount where it's actually mounted into it. It doesn't look like there's any tape on it, or either they cross-threaded it when they put it in, when they swapped this engine out. If I'd known the aggravation I was going to have with these people, I'd have swapped this engine out myself, as much trouble as it would have been. But yeah, rotary button, distributor cap. I'm not going to check the wires and plugs. Ought to be fine for 100,000 miles. So let's get that socket on there and get that oil pressure sending unit off. Then we're going to have to take that other, where it mounts into, take it off. Make sure we've got some thread tape on it and get it back in there. And hopefully they haven't stripped that thing out. And as you can see, you can't get this socket on the oil pressure sending unit. There's not enough room. So unless Frank has an idea or a way to get it off, I have changed this thing once myself, but I don't know how in the world I did it. I don't remember. But this socket's not going on there. Now I can tear this oil pressure sending unit up and get the socket on this and get it off. And I can get the new one on tight enough to where I don't need to use this socket. But, you know, I guess GM has a special wrench, because the oil pressure sending unit socket is not going to get on there. It won't come on there any way you go at it. There's not enough room. So let me see what kind of idea he's got, and we'll go from there. Okay, as you can see, we got it back on, and we cut the other one. We took a saw and cut this other one off so that we could get the socket on it. But we still couldn't undo it very far so we could get the whole thing out. But then we just unscrewed it. Now going back with it, we got the thread sealant on it, and we got that tightened in. Now what they did when they put this motor in, they tightened this thing where they pulled it all the way over to here, and they already had, I guess they already had the sending unit on or something, because it was real tight. But that way you couldn't get the socket on there. We stopped it right there, and it is plenty tight, and that way we could get the socket on there. So if you're replacing the thing, if you're messing with that mount, make sure you don't turn it too far, because you'll be hitting this with the socket. And what we were thinking about doing was cutting this out and bending it down, but that way it works just right. I knew I'd changed this thing once before and didn't have any trouble. So that should have it there. Now we just need to change this distributor cap, rotary button, button it back up, and then we will see tonight about leaks. We got it cleaned up. I will crawl up underneath there tonight and clean up the oil underneath there and see if there's anything else obvious that's going on. So let's change this rotary button, distributor cap, and get this thing back together. Now this engine has about 54,000 on it since they swapped the engine out. I don't think they used the new rotary button or distributor cap. This was a new distributor. They said they had to replace it because the old one was bad. That inside screw on that old rotary button wasn't even tight. There's all kind of black powder and everything in there. I think that rotary button had been vibrating. It's a wonder this engine was running at all. And it was all messed up, and the screws were all rusted. I think they used the original the rotary button distributor cap that I had put on the last time I tuned it up. So let's get the new distributor cap on, get it wired, get everything connected back up, and see how we are. Folks, what a royal pain. Not only was that rotary button boogered up, and I don't think they even used a new rotary button or distributor cap, but when I went to tighten down the back screw on the distributor cap, it wouldn't tighten down, and I didn't tighten it too, I didn't booger it up. It just wouldn't tighten up. So what we ended up doing was taking a self-tapping screw, the same size as the other one, metal screw, because that's the distributor is metal down there. And this little Makita Impact, Frank said he paid $300 for this, but it has been a great little tool. This will be a little Makita tool review. And a longer screw, and the bottom of this distributor has a hole in it down there, and this other one's got a hole in it, but this, even though the screw was longer, And even though it had a hole in it, the hole wasn't big enough all the way through for the screw. But we put that impact on it and tightened it down, and it did not split the distributor out down there. And we've got it tight, and so now we've got it ready. So we dropped it and it knocked a chip off of that, but that'll be okay. Yeah, 13572468. And again, small block Chevrolet firing order 1843657 and just chiseled in memory. Okay, well, let's swap the plug wires out. We'll we'll crank it to make sure it'll run, and then we'll put the cover on, wrap it up, clean all this mess up, and tonight I'll crawl in, or maybe in the morning. I've had enough of this. In the morning I may crawl underneath it and look for more, see about the oil leak. All this started off on a just simple oil leak from the oil pressure sending unit. Okay, we're going to crank it and make sure it's running okay. Check oil pressure. And on this distributor cap, you've got 1735 on this left side, and you've got 1, 2, 4, 6 on the other side. Okay, let's see if it's going to crank. Check oil pressure. We hadn't hooked up the distributor pickup. The oil pressure is up to 60. Fuel, amps, everything look good. Don't see anything leaking out of our fittings that we check out that bottom end tonight. I'm going to put it off before we get hot. Put this cover back on it, and we're going to wrap it up for today. I am done for today. Okay, we didn't put this cover back on. We're going to do some epoxy repair on it, try to stabilize it and stop the rattling and stuff. We're going to do some epoxy and fiberglass repair on it tonight or tomorrow morning. So we're going to wait to put that back on, and we need a parts van. We need a parts van bad. Hopefully that improvising we did on that distributor screw holes, I don't really want to buy. That's supposed to be a new distributor, but I have doubts that they put a new distributor in it. I don't want to buy a new distributor and go back into this thing, but we'll see. Yeah, today has been the perfect example of why at the tender age of 20, after 3 years, I guess, of turning wrenches for a living, I determined that my personality was not the type for turning wrenches. So I ended up at A&P in management, and at the tender age of 26, it became apparent to me that I was not cut out for retail and working for the public either. So went into contracting. Okay, let's go down here and see if we can see what's going on. There's oil coming out everywhere here. We're going to change the filter. Where is it? Yeah, we've got to see where it's coming from. We're going to take that filter off and see what's going on. Okay, follow up. We got up underneath there, we cranked it up, and oil was pouring out from around this oil filter. I checked to see if it was tight. It was. Now when I change this oil, I use 5W30, which is recommended. I hand tighten. That's what it says, hand tighten. I have another spare oil filter, so I went on and put another. That's what this engine calls for, 1218, AC Delco 1218. And after making contact, I turned it one full revolution, which is tighter than I normally tighten it. So we're going to replace the oil that we lost, and we're going to crank it back up and see if it does the same thing. I don't see anything wrong with this filter. I'm thinking either the oil coolant lines are clogged up, or that block for the oil cooler that attaches to the bottom of the block, or either this radiator, which this radiator is a new radiator. They swapped that radiator out when they swapped the engine out. So let's crank it up and see what that does. But I'm going to make this a wrap tonight on this one, and I'll just have to do a follow-up on it if this doesn't get it. But right now, I'm thinking it's still going to be leaking oil once it builds up oil pressure, but we'll see. And if it is, if it's not much, I may tighten it a little bit more. But I've never had problems with the oil filter leaking like that with me tightening them the way I tighten them. Okay, we've replaced about a little over half a quart of oil, which is what we lost, so it's showing full. We're going to let it run a little bit. We got that exhaust fan going so we won't build up carbon monoxide in here. Where's our light? Here. Let's look under there and see if it's leaking. So everything looks good right now. Maybe that seal on that other oil filter failed and it just blowing oil out by it. But I haven't seen anything wrong with it. But I bought these filters at the same time at Summit, so if there's something wrong with that one, they were probably made on the same assembly line at the same time. So we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens, but right now it's doing okay. So this is going to be a wrap. I'm going to get this thing put together and uploaded.